Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Sunday Sitdown, where it's not Sunday, but we are sitting down. And today I have the honor and privilege to be here with Annabelle Edward, who was preaching yesterday morning. It's Monday here in real time, and I was actually away yesterday.
Yeah.
I missed it. I was sad to miss it.
It's okay. It's online.
That's right. So I had a good listen this morning.
Yeah.
And I was so encouraged by the word you gave, and in so many ways, which we'll get into a little bit. But I also I was thinking as I was listening, you mentioned in the passage, which is about Mary and Martha, and Mary at the feet of Jesus, and we'll read it in a moment. But one thing I was very acutely aware of, and I just think it's quite poignant, is that it makes so much more sense for a woman to do this sermon, which was it was perfect. It was so perfect, just because, one of the things you highlighted is that, Mary was sitting at the feet of Jesus, which, was stretching the boundaries of what women could do in that day and age. And there are so many voices even in Christian, in the Christian universe today, that still try to limit the activity and voices of women. And I'm so glad that you were the one to give that message.
Yeah, it was actually quite fun when the quote I said on Sunday from N.T. Wright, that was Mary is sitting at Jesus's feet as a would-be preacher and teacher of the scripture would have first had to be an apprentice to another teacher, as Jesus was called many times in the Bible. So it was fun to see that in this passage, because it's not one that's normally quoted when people are like, oh no, women can do it. So I was like, hey, there's another one. But so that was quite cool.
And my hope is that is always something that is near and dear to our heart in this church community. And it's one of the reasons why every chance we can get, whether it's you or my wife Lindsay or Allison or Connie or whomever else, right? It's just we need more of that in our lives. So I'm glad.
Grateful that our church does that and allows me to preach, other women to preach, and anyone. It's not just about women, it's also about the outcasts and the people that you wouldn't normally see welcomed into circles that are.
I want to make a slight distinction from, you use the word allow there, and I want to little qualifier
That's
there.
fair.
No, just because I don't the last thing I want is for it to feel Grant or I are we are allowing from on high. Man, I hate when people have that mentality about it. Oh, thank you for the opportunity, but it's no, you're gifted. You are called, and we just, God has done that work in you, and now you get to pour that out to other people, and it's that's just good, and we just need more of that. So
Thank you. But yes,
cool. So this was Luke chapter 10. I'm going to read it. It was a shorter section. So this is Luke chapter 10, verse 38 to 42. And I'm reading from the NIV, which is that what you read from?
yes, I did.
There we go. Okay. So as Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister called Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and asked, Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me. Martha, Martha, the Lord answered, you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. Cool. So I left my iPad at home, and I'm going analog. I made notes.
That's fun. Recently I've started to do that with school. I'm looking at a screen for so long.
It can hurt your eyes.
Yeah.
this is like, but I mean, this is like such like a Grant thing to do. And so, but it's really just a function of me. I didn't want to have my like 16-inch laptop screen in front of me. Anyway.
I know. Wow. We're going to do what we have.
You know, no, you're fine. That one's a better size.
Yep,
And
fair.
so there was a few thoughts, a few questions that were percolating for myself, and for Grant. Send me a few, and I kind of like, they kind of aligned with some of the questions that were percolating for me. And this is a plug for if you have any questions about a sermon, any thoughts that come up, you can send them to questions@courtrightchurch.org, and we always check before we record to see if there's anything there, just to facilitate discussion for something that you're processing or working through in light of the sermon. So, first question: what might it look like to create space in my day to sit at Jesus's feet like Mary did? And so you touched on this idea of Mary. What Mary's doing is she is receiving from Jesus. She's receiving his teaching as an apprentice, as a disciple. And so when we think about what she is doing there, how can we, what are some ways, and you highlighted a couple of them, but maybe I just want to go a little deeper. And because there's the other piece of the coin that we talked about a little bit before pressing record, is that there are things that we can do alone. Things that are, we see that modeled in Jesus, that Jesus would withdraw to pray and to be with God the Father. And, but that there are also a lot of things that we ought to be doing in community. And Mary was in community here. She wasn't alone at the feet of Jesus. That's why Martha was running around doing all the things, because there was lots of company over, right?
Yeah. A lot of people. Jesus was there.
Yeah, exactly.
I would be stressed.
I loved the way you highlighted that. Like, it was Jesus.
Well, like, if anyone's coming to your house, it's stressful. But Jesus?
Yeah.
Like, what if he noticed the dust on your cupboards? That would be stressful.
I know. And that's like a tension in our household that we've gotten better at over the years, but like when it's a company's going to come over, and it's like, what is the level of cleanliness that is appropriate for, anyway.
No, I have started, as I have become an adult, I have started to notice these things. As a child, I'd be like, why is everyone so stressed about it? And now I'm like, oh no.
Yeah.
Like, what if they go upstairs? They won't, but what if they do? It needs to be clean. I
had on I think it was Friday night, a friend who I haven't seen in like 2 years. I was having like a nap on the couch, because I was going to be a late night because I had a ball game that was going to be on, an important,
very important
Blue Jays playoff game, and I was so tired from the previous game, which went until like 11:30. And so I needed to sleep. I needed a nap.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden my wife wakes me up. She's like, Justin, someone's at the door.
Oh, no.
And it was a friend who I hadn't seen in years. And he was just like passing by and had, thought he'd stop in.
Yeah.
But we went through this thing of like, I think my wife had like just done a workout and was in like workout clothes, and like the house was not in a state. There was like I'd gone to PetSmart and picked up some like cat litter for our cat, and I was sitting at the front of the door, but we didn't care. We didn't care. It was nice to see my friend, Yeah. But
so it's that tension of like, it is nice to see people, but but Martha is on the other side of that.
Yes. Yeah. And we'll come back to that. It's some of that balance a little bit later. But so I want to think about like, what does it look like to sit at the feet of Jesus, to create that space alone and in community? So I don't know if you have any thoughts around that. Yeah.
Yeah, that was something I was really thinking about leading up to the sermon, because I was at the beginning really focusing on that alone aspect and like, how do you do it alone? And then halfway through the week, someone mentioned, they're like, well, do you have to do it alone? And I was like, yeah, that is like half of our call is to do it together. And the church is not separate like we're all one eye, we're all separate body parts is the analogy to be the function of the church. And that is very important. So, but to go back to alone, I think it's very important also to have your personal relationship with Jesus. Sometimes it can be easy to like grab onto other people's relationship with Jesus. And that is great to pull you through hard times of like leaning on someone else, but also having your strong foundation is essential. And not easy, as I mentioned multiple times on Sunday, because I struggle with it too, of the, but what does that even look like? Because a lot of people talk about you need a relationship with Jesus. That's what I've just said for the last few minutes. You need a relationship with Jesus, but how do you do that? And the things I've come up with were quite practical, because it would be lovely to spend all your time reading your Bible, but it's not very practical. A lot of us have jobs or school or kids or other things going on, but that doesn't mean you can't carve out time for it. And that also doesn't mean you can't do it during the other hectic parts of life. So a few that I mentioned for individually were like carving out moments to read your Bible in the morning, afternoon, at night, any time that you have time, or which worked for me for a while, but then school got busy. So what do you do when you really don't seem to have that time? And is there stuff on the go? Lectio 365 is what I mentioned, is it's something you can listen to. And someone mentioned that to me a few weeks ago, of it doesn't always have to be you reading your Bible and trying to figure it out and do it that way. Like sometimes it's just lovely to listen to what other devotionals and stuff like that.
And just receive.
Receive.
Yeah.
Because, and that sort of ties into the community aspect of doing it alone is really hard. And it's nice to hear other people's thoughts. Preparing the sermon, I asked a bunch of people what they saw in the passage. We sat down with Grant and Allison and talked it through, because we all have different opinions, different approaches, different ways we see things that pop out to us more than others. So I think
we need each other. Like
we need each other.
Yeah.
It is vital in the walk with Christ. We need people, and that's what you see Mary doing. She's not by herself with Jesus. In a way she is, like it's her and Jesus, she's learning from him, but she also has all these people around her that want to. And that's, I think, the key component. Like we need to surround ourselves with people that are actively seeking Jesus and knowing and being known by him. So going back to practical things, what does that look like? I have like going to a Bible study, making your own Bible study.
We need more leaders. There's a pitch for more Bible study leaders.
If you are feeling called to it. Because even if you're leading a Bible study, you're still part of it. And you're still listening to other people. And it's last year I was part of a Bible study, and it was great because it was an intentional time every Wednesday. I think it was Wednesday, don't actually remember, that we sat down and we took an hour to go through whatever it was. So that's one. I also think coffee hour after church or before church. If you didn't know, we also have coffee before church now. Yay. But talking with people, seeing how their week's going, what they're wrestling with, just building that community, I think is key. And it looks different, and there's many different ways to do that. Inviting over a friend you haven't seen. Those kind of things.
Yeah. I love, sometimes when there's a friend and you have a shared faith, and all of a sudden it becomes this this moment to where you're not just catching up, but you're how is your soul? Like what's going on in your world? How, what can we be supporting each other? And which is such a huge, I love when friendships can go that deeper level. So, and
that's not just going to happen. I have learned a lot, now the last few months has been I don't like small talk. Small talk is great, but sometimes you just stop at the small talk and you're like, oh, how's your dog doing? Or how are your kids? And that's it. And that's great. But with those friendships that are deep and you both have a relationship with Jesus, and actually going out and being how are you really doing? Not just how's your day going, but you can start with that, but how's your walk with Jesus? Have you, read your Bible today? Not like it's like a checkup,
No,
because
no,
we
no.
don't want that.
Yeah.
But to be more intentional with nurturing our relationships together, and really seeing how people are doing,
Yeah.
good and the bad.
A few hundred years ago, John Wesley, theologian, itinerant preacher dude, he developed like this little kind of like small group format. This is like in the 1700s. And these, small groups of people would get together. And one of the questions that they would ask each other, which I think is it gets to the point of it, is like, I think the phrasing, if I'm recalling it correctly, and I think I am, is like, how is it with your soul?
Yeah.
It just like gets to like the heart of the matter. Like,
lovely. I like
how
that.
is it with your soul? Like,
Yeah.
is your soul, is there something in it that is disturbed? Is there something in that, is it well? Is it, like, I just think it leads, anyway, I just thought of that as you were talking about that. And I was like, oh, John Wesley, he had some good stuff in there. And, I know that I work at a Presbyterian church here, but I went to a Wesleyan leaning seminary. And that doesn't, if you don't know what any of those words mean, it does not matter, other than just to say is that, they're like learning from different faith traditions within, with under the scope of Christianity can be a beautiful thing. And so I've learned lots from my time with my Presbyterian friends, and now I am one, but also from my Wesleyan crew. So
but that's a good way to say it too. Like as we're saying, like people, like friends and people that are on the same walk with Jesus. It doesn't necessarily be like you have to find another Presbyterian that believes the same thing. Like that is not. I went to a Catholic church over the summer because I was staying with a family that was Catholic, and they brought me to meet their priest, which was hilarious and lovely, and it was just an amazing experience. But they were like, this is a Protestant and instead of like, this is Annabelle, they were like, this is a Protestant, we've brought her. They're lovely people. It was just hilarious how they introduced me. And the priest said, do you believe in Jesus? And I was like, yeah. He's like, same Jesus. And I just love that. It's like, it's the same Jesus. Like we have differing beliefs on different things and how maybe to act as a church or as a community, differing things, but we all believe in the same Jesus. And I think that's lovely.
That's so good. That's so good. And I'm also thinking when you talk about community, and sort of like being at the feet of Jesus and community, we were talking about this a little bit, this idea, like, for centuries, the Christians did not have access to their own Bibles. Yeah. Like that's like thank you to Gutenberg and his printing press. Like fantastic. Yeah. We can all have Bibles now. Yeah. But like prior to that, you've got like language barriers and like literacy barriers. And just as a natural byproduct of that, you have people that are reading the scriptures in group contexts where you have one or maybe a couple people that know how to read and understand what is being said, right? And that can be like there's benefits and drawbacks to both of those things, right? There's like benefits of like, hey, this is kind of meant to be done in community, that we can learn from one another, grow and challenge each other and in good ways in community. But also it became at some point a tool for kind of power and authority in an unhealthy way, which is, part of, the Protestant heritage and what led to some of the stuff in the Protestant Reformation. But also some of the drawbacks you see of like the hyper individualized, I'm going to read my Bible, just me and Jesus, and that's all we're going to do. And then you can read your Bible, you and Jesus, and arrive at some very wrong conclusions. Yes.
Like there is a reason that we have teachers on these things, and there is a reason people study it their whole lives. I heavily leaned on some of the commentaries around this passage because they have really insightful things to say. And I think it's a misconception that you have to like fully figure it out yourself and that you will like individually know. I think that is a product of our culture today, especially in North America, of everything's very individual. And you are praised for doing things individually. And that is like the ladder climbing up. You want to be the person that gets that promotion. So to actively do it together, collaborate and learn together. Because again, everyone comes from different parts of life, walks of life. They have different insights. They have different things that are being drawn out to them while you're reading a passage. And I think it's a beautiful thing to read a passage or listen to a series or do it together. Because I think it's a bit of a disservice to, not like it's wrong not to do it, have quiet time yourself. That is also very important, but I think it's a bit of a disservice to us to just leave it at that, because then you'll never hear or see the other things that are being shared by others.
Yeah, oh, that's great. So kind of connected to so we talked about creating space in our day, alone, with community, for Jesus, to be at the feet of Jesus. I want to talk a little bit about what's happening in this context. So they're in the home of Mary and Martha, and there is a component of hospitality here to what they. I mean, I think Martha would see herself as
terrified of mixing those two
I know.
up. Because I practiced my sermon a few times and I totally mixed them up.
Yeah.
Mary and Martha, why two M names?
I know, come on. Yeah.
Sorry.
So you got Martha, who's I think kind of functioning in the role of this, I got to do all the hospitality stuff, right? And there is a component, I think there's a component of hospitality for both of them. That Mary is she's sitting there with Jesus and she's listening, and Jesus is a guest in their home. And anyway, but I want to talk a little bit about radical hospitality. You refer to that and want to unpack that a little bit. Tell me more about radical hospitality.
That is one of the things that ended up on the cutting floor. I mentioned it maybe once or twice in the sermon, but it was its own thing that I was if I keep talking, I will be here all day.
Yeah.
And I don't know if people will appreciate that. So radical hospitality is, how I see it, is a radical way of being welcoming and making people feel comfortable and seen in your space. So in this context, we'd be talking about the church, our church specifically, words. And actually radical hospitality, the term was coined by Alpha, which is we have Alpha Canada, there's Alpha UK, and it is a series of videos that help people learn and understand the gospel and the Bible.
Which may be making a resurgence at our church. Stay tuned.
But it is, as they say, it's an opportunity to explore the meaning of life for Christians that have been Christians for a long time, for new people, all of the above. But I love that term when I read it, because I think it's something that we have to do. I talked about how Jesus's kingdom is radical, and it is radical because at the beginning we were talking about bringing in women, but bringing in outcasts as well, bringing in the Samaritan. If you didn't catch that sermon last week, go watch it.
It's great.
And Jesus's kingdom is radical, so therefore everything we do has to be or is radical in its own way. So that's where radical hospitality, I found, came from, and I think that connects to how we have to do this in community. Our knowing and being known by Jesus specifically, I don't believe that we can get to exploring or bringing forth with Jesus's help the radical kingdom that he was bringing into the world at that time without him. So we can do all the things, like I was saying, have all the Bible studies, have Alpha, have community, time with your community after church with coffee. But if we don't do it with a posture of knowing and being known by Jesus, actively seeking that, how can you bring in Jesus's kingdom without him being there? That's more like bringing in your own kingdom of what we think is right. And that's dangerous. I think that's very dangerous. So how the question then becomes, how do we make KPC, how do we make our church, the church, a community that is intent on continually pursuing Jesus's radical kingdom, and then having radical hospitality, radical generosity, all those things that come with it. And I think that comes with knowing and being known by Jesus. And I think we sort of talked about this at the beginning, before the cameras turned on, was with that radical hospitality. Like, I think Courtright is very good at being a community and welcoming people when they come. But like, how do we invite people? How do we be a community intent on inviting people to church? And how do we do that well? Yeah. And again, I think that all ties back to we as Courtright, as members of the church, as longtime Christians, or just people that are like, yes, this is where I want to go. How can we collectively as a team work on knowing and being known by Jesus to then go out and invite people and build his kingdom.
And knowing and being known by Jesus, and then knowing and being known by our neighbors, which is, becoming trusted neighbors. And, yesterday we had, this fall fair event after the service. And there was like, I don't know if we have a head count, but there was a lot of families, like a ton of families from the neighborhood that came through, and we're just continuing to build those relationships and foster those connections. And like that is a simple, easy invite. Yeah. We're not like holding them hostage for like a gospel,
but you first have to sit through the sermon,
like,
and
then
you're allowed.
Because I think that's like, when you talk about how we can do this well, there's also ways you can do it really poorly. Right. For sure. And that, like we don't, you can't do like bait and switch type stuff, right? Like that's not going to go well. Like sometimes a fun event is just a fun event, and we are working in and being in community with our neighbors and for community related events and community building stuff, right? It's great. But I do think, when it comes to things like you mentioned, like Alpha, you mentioned there's lots of other events where it's like, hey, there are some other tiers here where it's like, hey, how can we bring people in? How can we, and alongside that, you're not just inviting them, but you're inviting them into something that is deeply hospitable, right? Especially something, just using again Alpha as an example, like you're coming into someone's church or someone's home, and sharing a meal together, and you're having like pretty deep discussion about things like that. That requires a certain level of radical hospitality that we don't see a ton of in our world today, I find, at least here in the West, which tends to be more hyper individualized, and it's like, I've got here's my home and my property, and don't come on my property. No trespassing. And like that's a pretty kind of, I think, Western, at least in this in this part of the world here. It's because I've been to places where people who have nothing invite you into their homes and give you everything that they have, right? So like that's not the norm here, right? But anyway, just like some good questions. I mean, even like for us to explore, but also for you as a listener, of like, how am I preparing myself to like potentially like take the risk of extending an invite to someone, because
it's vulnerable.
It is vulnerable.
When you invite people. I remember first year I met a bunch of friends, people at school, and I invited them to church, and that was vulnerable. I was like, come see my church. I was like, it's not perfect, but it's so community, and they're lovely. But that's for any church, everyone. And I think so that is a vulnerable step, to put yourself out there and be like, come, feel welcomed. We want you to join us. But I think that's also a way to build community. Like inviting people in and having a space to ask those questions and to get to know God is a great way to build that community and do those, like, what is an actionable way you can do it together? That is an actionable way you can do it together. But again, I don't think you can you can, but I don't think you can do it well without knowing God, or having, like, as a church, being intent on, like, these are our, we know that this is what Jesus is calling us to do, and this is what we want. Like our being trusted neighbors, that was what we discerned was a call for our church. And then to not bait and switch, as you said, like inviting people to the fall fair without saying, you got to come to church first, is because we know Jesus, and we're still obviously pursuing him constantly, but that is not what Jesus did. He didn't like, I will heal you if you get baptized right now. That was not Jesus. That was not his ministry. So he invited the people and to come see him, to learn. And I think that's why we say, like, invite them to these fun events, not with the intent to convert them today, but because we know that's what Jesus would have done.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. And so I want to, continue on here with one of the things that Jesus says regarding, Martha comes to Jesus and she's like, "Would you make my sister do stuff, please?"
Which felt on a deep level, not for my sister, no, but I was like, oh, siblings. Yeah. This is every sibling knows that, like, oh, this is not fair. When you're 5 and you see your sibling doing something, you're like, oh, I want to do that. Like, that is, feel it.
And then Jesus turns back to her and says, like, she's chosen the better thing.
Yeah.
But then Jesus says, so few things are needed, indeed only one. And so, like, what is the one thing, like, that Mary is doing, that he is? And I don't think he's going to Martha. Like, I don't think he's like, I think I picture it like as a gentle chiding, like I picture it of like, Martha, I want you to see the bigger picture here, like what you're doing is good, but actually what Mary is doing is better. And yet Martha's also doing something that's kind of crucial. Like, what's going to happen?
They're not going to eat if she doesn't make food.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
if someone doesn't make food.
So like, I guess, like, the question is, like, how is Mary being at the feet of Jesus the better thing?
Yeah. I think I love that language. When I read it first, I was like, better, because he's not saying the best thing. And he's not saying what Martha is doing is awful and wrong, and how could you possibly do that? He's inviting her into a space that is better. I like to think of it, Jesus being like, this is great. Like, what being hospitable and doing that is lovely, but I'm here for a short time and I want to get to know you and I want to know you. And Jesus is inviting her into a relationship with him. He's like, there's so much noise in our lives, in Martha's life. There is a lot going on. And sometimes it feels like you can't keep up with it. But Jesus is saying, Martha, I'm not going to be here forever, like in physical form.
Yeah.
I want what your sister is doing is better. She's sitting at my feet and she's listening, and we're talking and having a conversation and getting to know each other. And I think that is why he's saying, indeed only one of these is, what is the?
Oh, he said, I think this might be a different translation that Grant was referring to. He said, a few things are needed, indeed only one.
Yeah, is like, few things are needed, but indeed only one. Getting to know me getting to know you, knowing and being known by Jesus, the relationship with him, because I think you can, doing all the other stuff, being hospitable church, radical hospitality, generosity, inviting people in, they're great, and they are the call of the church and call of us as Christians, but I don't think you can do them well at all without first knowing and being known by Jesus. So I think Jesus is saying to Martha, to us, like, inviting us into that space of sitting at his feet and having a relationship with him, because he's saying, this is the better thing. You need to know this first, or continually know this, because we're not going to, like, check mark, know Jesus. Yes. It is a continual process for your entire life. So,
And there's something about this idea of, I mean, these two things are obviously connected, of that we pursue God's kingdom, but it can't be divorced from knowing and being known by Jesus. And in fact, I think what Jesus is saying here, it's like, we pursue God's kingdom by, like, the tangible fruit of the kingdom, by knowing and being known, right? It starts there, right? And I've seen, I won't even say I've seen, I have been in places in my life where I am not running on the power of knowing and being known by Jesus, where I'm just doing the thing that I know how to do, because I'm like, you know what, I'm good at this. And if I can just do that all I want all week long on my own strength, without being empowered by Jesus and knowing him. And it usually is mediocre, you know. It's like, it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, like I did the thing.
Yeah.
It was a thing, you know.
It happened.
It happened, you know.
Yeah.
Versus doing the thing out of a place of being deeply known by Jesus and knowing, right? Like there is a distinct difference between those things. And so like, you could imagine a scenario. I'm just kind of picturing like Martha having first taken time to be at the feet of Jesus and to be alongside her sister and to take those moments. And then for Martha, how different that experience may have been for her. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it really changes how we do things. I think if it's just on us, then we stay in the comfortable like box of I can do this. Yes. But if we know and are known by Jesus, we are stretched to, maybe it's not the thing we would have, inviting over somebody to a Bible study or to church, not something you might have done by yourself, but knowing and being known by Jesus, you're like, I feel him calling me to do this, and I'm going to step out in faith to do this and know that Jesus is there beside me in that. When I was about to go up, I was like, okay, God, this is your sermon. I can't do it without you, because how can you preach or talk about Jesus's kingdom without him? Because then I was like, I need you to be here to let this land, for the people that need it. This is not me. It can't be me. So I think that's,
and there's something, because I mean, like you're like you're three sermons in.
Sermons in, yep.
You know, but there is like what you're describing is, it doesn't go away. Like that, you know, there are still times when, you know, I'll wake up on a Sunday morning when I'm slated to preach and, you know, be like, oh, I'm not happy with my ending. I'm not happy with whatever. And then at some point, all of the striving and all of the like trying to like make sure I've crafted in just the right way. And like, it's, I got to give it over. Right. And it's one of those things where, okay, so here, and this is a really like tangible thing. Like we're on a Sunday morning, there's two approaches, and this is like a Mary Martha approach in some ways, right? There's two approaches. If you're in, you know, if you're getting up there, you're ready to preach or to whatever, you can sit there during the, you know, the musical worship and whatever, and you can be just like stewing, thinking about all the things you got to say, and you're reviewing your notes and doing all the things. What are you going to absorb in those 20 minutes versus entering in to the sung worship in that moment and just receiving from the Lord in that moment? How much better is that? Right. And it's hard. Like that's something that has been a learned thing for me, where I used to be a pacer. I'd be like pacing around and be like, okay, I gotta be ready to go. Gotta do this, gotta do that. Like there's an anxiousness to that versus, okay, well, I've done everything I can do. Nothing else is going to help me in this moment other than just being with Jesus. Yeah.
And it's like a complete surrender that I don't think is possible unless you have that relationship with Jesus. And that, if you are not preaching in a church, which I don't think many people, like lots are, but most people watching probably are like, that's great, but I'm not a pastor. But that is for everything. For going into an exam, you're just like, I did all the work, I studied, but I'm giving you my anxiety and my stress and walking into this. Or at work, a big presentation, inviting someone to church again. I keep mentioning that, but it's that there's only so much you can do before you have to be like, God, this is you.
Yeah. At some point it just becomes like anxious frittering. Like you're just sort of like, I don't know what you think you're going to accomplish in these 10 minutes before this thing here, but you'd be better off like centering yourself, sitting before the Lord, doing a few deep breaths, praying, you know, whatever.
And then seeing what he's going to do. Because I think that's also beautiful. I remember my second sermon, I've only had 3 guys. My second one, there was like one word that I didn't know if I wanted to say it, just the way that it made the sentence sound. And I was like, okay, when I get to this part, like it's going to be one or the other. And that was a surrender of, I don't know how this is going to land, but this is how I'm giving this to you. And and like, I strongly felt like, you got to say it this way. And it's not always like that, but I think that is the beautiful way that when you have that like open communication with God, when you have that knowing and being known by him, like those fruitful things can come out of it because he knows more than you do. Maybe someone was thinking or it landed for one person because of that. And for anywhere in your life or situation, that is, he knows more than we do. And that's why I think it's so crucial for the work of the church as well.
That's great. Okay, so one final kind of thought connected to all of this is like we've all been in situations where someone else seems to have like chosen rest while we're kind of carrying the load. Like we see someone, like someone's maybe they're literally having a nap or like they're, taking a day off.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we're busting our butts trying to do the thing, whether that's something in church life or something in your house or, I don't know, whether you like group projects in school and someone's not pulling their weight and it's like, nope, sorry, today's my day off. I'm not touching it, and it's like, how do you not become like bitter and resentful like toward that person, right? And like there's a question that sometimes, or there's a word that sometimes I feel a bit like mixed on the word itself, and the word is balance, because I feel like balance is not possible in life. Like balance, like it's a nice ideal, very unrealistic, and sometimes not even the thing we need, right? Sometimes we don't need balance, but is there a balance here? Like how do we, this tension between like, hey, I deserve, rest and to be with Jesus and to slow down. Those are all good things that we all need and deserve in many ways. Versus doing, I don't know, like just riff off that with me. Yeah.
I think, and we see that in the passage, like Martha's like, Jesus, dude, do you not see my sister? She's not doing anything. I'm very stressed right now.
Probably resentful.
Yeah. And I think that's dangerous too, specifically in the church, when that resentfulness like festers and you are just like, oh, this one person never, that is a dangerous thing. Yeah. And I think that is where I don't fully know. That is an open question that I invite us to tackle and to reflect on. But I think a crucial part of this is boundaries, having like tangible, like these are the expectations. Sometimes it is easy in a church to just be like, wherever it goes. And that is great too, because we want to be the people open to Jesus moving. But I think it's also dangerous, and we don't want volunteers to burn out. We don't want people that work here to burn out. We don't want, but we also want people to have rest, and everyone to have moments of rest and time to be with Jesus. So if there's one person doing that where everyone else is trying to pull the weight of the work, that's also not good. So it's like that balance and like real expectations and communication, and you don't have to leave Jesus out of that, like going forth in the like praying and seeing where different people have strengths versus weaknesses. Just an example, like a Bible study, like who is the person that is volunteering that you're like, they would be great up front leading this. And then who are the people that would be really good as like a table leader, who would be really good at drawing people out, who would love to set up and who would love to take down, and those kind of things. So like putting people in places where they can thrive is fundamental. But then also checking yourself, like when you're like, okay, you see that person that you think maybe is taking a nap. Maybe they had a really hard week. Maybe something's going on. And maybe that's a place where you can be invited to check on them or to go say, hey, how's it going? And Yeah, so that's many thoughts.
Yeah, no, that's
I don't
great.
know what.
I had a thought, and this probably came from somewhere, but it entered my brain. And so if this is, if I owe someone a footnote, too bad. But like one thing that I think is so important
Yeah.
for us as a church and for like our staff team, but also just down into our volunteers is that we value people over productivity.
Yeah.
That's where I think I might need the footnote, because I don't know, that might have come from somewhere else.
It's a good line.
Yeah, it is a good, whether it came from my brain or the Lord or somewhere else, it's a good line. Like we need to value people over productivity, and just like especially in the church, like we are, we've got stuff we need to do.
Yeah.
There are things to get done. You've been running our social media. I was like, I was feeling it for you a little bit. It was like you were finishing up writing a sermon for this past week. And also you were like, rightfully so, like bugging me for like things you needed for, some of the social media posts.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I feel bad that Annabelle's got to do all that plus, right? But like, I think that is a right approach, that we say like you as a person and your health, your spiritual, physical, mental well-being matters more than getting the thing done.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the way that I want us to be as a church, for our volunteers. So if a volunteer ever came to me and said, like, hey, I'm going through some stuff right now, my first thing will be, well, then quit what you're doing. Like that matters more.
Yeah.
And for us to be able to say like, look, God, if this thing needs to happen, God will provide. Yeah. Like we believe that, right? So
I think I think that comes out of knowing and being known by Jesus, specifically knowing Jesus. Like Jesus's ministry wasn't just like convert all these people. Yeah. It was checking in on people. It was seeing how they were doing. It was relationships with people. And I think maybe that's one of the ways that churches can get it wrong sometimes, of if it's the numbers of how many people came to church this week, or how many new people came to church this week, or how many people have we invited. It's good to invite people, but it is not the key. Like we check in those boxes trying to put numbers to it. And again, it's good. Fire codes, safety, good to know
all the things,
but it is not the main focus. Our main focus are people, having relationships with people and making sure people are okay.
And there's even a tension within that of you want to have like, this is like very businessy like language, like you want to have metrics. Metrics are not a bad thing. Like there's like, hey, like there are things, like goals we want to strive for, things that we want to see happen, and like, because otherwise nothing will happen. But also like there becomes a threshold where it can become like a little bit icky, and I remember in a previous season, there was someone who was involved in a church leadership situation. And one of the things that they were suggesting was like, hey, like how many baptisms are you going to do this year? How many salvations? And I'm like, whoa, that doesn't sound like my job. Like, and I don't mean that in a way that like we're, obviously like we have a role in like encouraging people to be baptized, or to encouraging people to walk and take steps toward faith. Right. Those are things. Right. But like at some point it can veer into, well, I got to meet this goal in this metric. Anyway, it's gave me the ick when I was in my early 20s and still does now.
I think it's that our goal shouldn't be that. Our goal shouldn't be metrics and stuff. It is a great byproduct, and it is we should be ones to facilitate that. And of course we have a mission and vision for a reason, because we want to be trusted neighbors. We want to be people that seek God's radical kingdom and bring it forth, and we need a business approach in a sense for that, of course, to run a building, to have staff, to do all those things. But if that becomes the primary focus, then what makes us different from any other business? Because we're supposed to be the body of Christ and seeking out God's kingdom.
And it makes me exceptionally more grateful for those who do have that mindset to be able to kind of run the facility end of things and the finances and all the things that like, man, like that's not the way my brain works. And like, God bless those folks. And so there are many of them in our church community that, you know, we are eternally grateful and indebted to. So anyway, anything else you want to say that you didn't get a chance to say earlier?
No, I think that was I think that's good. I think it's just the main, like, knowing and being known by God, and to know that individually that's great, but as a community, that is also something we should actively be pursuing.
That's great. Well, thank you again for all that you poured out for us. And in the middle of like midterms the other week, like, man, you're just remarkable to see that all come to, all come to fruition, and just grateful for this, and for, Lord willing, more. And so, like I said earlier, if you have any questions or thoughts connected to the sermon from the previous Sunday, feel free to send them to questions@courtrightchurch.org. And so we hope that some of these conversations will help guide some conversation for you in your household, with friends, with whomever you're interacting with. And so we hope that this has been helpful, and we'll see you next time.